October 4th, 2021. At exactly 11:40 in the morning, something happened that 3 billion people felt at the same time without any of them knowing why. Facebook went offline, then Instagram, then WhatsApp. Not slowly, not partially, all at once, completely, as if someone had reached behind the largest communication network ever built and unplugged it from the wall. For nearly 6 hours, it stayed that way. And the story of why it happened reveals something about Facebook that the company had spent years trying to keep out of public conversation. The 2019 New Zealand outage. In March 2019, Facebook went dark across large parts of the world for approximately 14 hours, the longest outage the platform had experienced up to that point. It began hours after the Christchurch mosque shootings, during which a gunman had live-streamed the attack on Facebook Live. The timing was not a coincidence. Facebook's internal systems were under extraordinary stress as the company scrambled to detect and remove copies of the footage that were spreading across the platform faster than automated systems could catch them. The removal effort consumed enormous processing resources, and the strain contributed to widespread instability that left millions of users unable to access the platform for the better part of a day. Facebook never fully acknowledged the connection between the content crisis and the outage, but the timing told its own story. It was the first major public demonstration that Facebook's infrastructure and Facebook's content problems were not separate issues. They were the same issue. The 2019 March outage. Just days before the New Zealand crisis, Facebook had experienced a separate and unrelated outage that lasted nearly 24 hours and affected users across North America, Europe, and Asia. It was the worst technical outage in the company's history at that point, taking down not just Facebook, but Instagram and WhatsApp simultaneously. The cause was traced to a server configuration change that triggered a cascading failure across Facebook's storage systems. Hundreds of millions of users could not load their feeds, send messages, or access photos. For most people, it was an inconvenience. For the businesses, political campaigns, and media organizations that had built their entire audience infrastructure on Facebook's platform, it was a costly and clarifying reminder of how little control they actually had over the foundation they were building on. Facebook's stock dropped during the outage, and the company's public response was minimal. A brief acknowledgement and a quiet restoration of services with no detailed explanation offered to the public. The 2020 outage. On July 3rd, 2020, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went down again, this time for several hours during what should have been a routine period of platform activity. The outage disproportionately affected users in Europe and parts of Asia, and it arrived at a particularly sensitive moment. Facebook was already under intense regulatory scrutiny in Europe over data privacy practices, and the outage added fuel to a growing argument among European policymakers that the platform's dominance over digital communication carried unacceptable systemic risk. When a single company controls the primary communication channel for hundreds of millions of people across a continent, its technical failures become political events. The 2020 outage did not change European policy on its own, but it deepened a conversation that was already well underway about what it meant to allow that level of concentration in the first place. The October 2021 outage. This was the one that changed everything. On October 4th, 2021, a routine maintenance operation on Facebook's global backbone network went catastrophically wrong. An engineer issued a command intended to assess network capacity. Instead, it severed the connections between Facebook's data centers and the broader internet entirely. Within minutes, all three platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, were completely unreachable. But the failure did not stop there. The internal systems Facebook used to monitor and respond to outages also ran on the same backbone. With the backbone down, those systems went dark too. Engineers trying to fix the problem remotely found they had no access to the tools they needed. Door access systems at some data centers stopped working, meaning engineers could not physically enter the buildings to begin manual repairs. The company that had spent 15 years building one of the most sophisticated technology infrastructures in the world was locked out of its own house. It took nearly 6 hours to restore services. During those 6 hours, an estimated 3 billion people lost access to platforms many of them depended on, not as social media, but as essential communication infrastructure. In Nigeria, WhatsApp is how families coordinate across cities. In India, it is how small businesses communicate with suppliers. In Brazil, it is how doctors reach patients. For 6 hours, all of that stopped. Facebook's stock fell more than 10%. Mark Zuckerberg lost an estimated $7 billion in personal net worth in a single afternoon. And a former Facebook employee named Frances Haugen, who had leaked thousands of internal documents to journalists and regulators just days earlier, watched from the outside as the outage made her central argument for her. That Facebook had grown so large, so fast, and with so little external accountability that even its own engineers could not fully control it. The 2021 whistleblower connection. The October outage did not happen in isolation. It arrived during the single most damaging week in Facebook's public history. Frances Haugen had testified before the United States Senate just one day earlier, presenting internal research showing that Facebook's own data scientists had documented the platform's harmful effects on teenage mental health, political polarization, and the spread of misinformation, and that leadership had repeatedly chosen growth over safety when the two came into conflict. The outage landed on top of that testimony like punctuation. Here was a company being accused of knowing its product caused harm and doing nothing, and then the product disappeared entirely for 6 hours because of an internal mistake the company could not quickly fix. The combination of the whistleblower revelations and the outage shifted public and regulatory perception of Facebook in a way that individual events alone rarely do. The company has never quite recovered the level of uncomplicated public trust it held before that week. The 2022 outages. In the months following the October 2021 crisis, Facebook experienced several smaller but notable disruptions as the company worked to rebuild and reinforce its network infrastructure. Each one arrived in a context of heightened scrutiny, meaning outages that might previously have passed with minimal coverage now generated significant media attention. The pattern revealed something structural, that Facebook's infrastructure, despite its scale and the enormous resources behind it, had been built at such speed and to such size that maintaining it had become genuinely difficult. Engineers were managing a system of extraordinary complexity, and the margin for error had narrowed to the point where routine maintenance operations carried real risk of cascading failure. The deeper pattern. Across every outage Facebook has experienced, a consistent truth surfaces. The platform's failures are never just technical events. They are windows. Each one reveals something about the company that normal operations keep hidden: the concentration of global communication in a single private infrastructure, the dependency of billions of people on a system they do not own and cannot influence, and the gap between the image of seamless technological power that Facebook projects and the reality of the fragile, complicated machinery running beneath it. Every time Facebook disappeared, it took something with it beyond just the ability to scroll a feed. It took the illusion that the system was as solid as it looked. And each time it came back, that illusion was a little harder to fully restore.